Hey everybody, my name is Elijah Desmond, and I am super excited to have my guest, Christine Diehl. How you doing, Christine?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to Closing the Deal Dental Podcast. I am very excited to have you on as a special guest. And I first, before we ask you the number one question, I want to like acknowledge that this virtual screen behind me is not a real podcast studio. Mine is under construction. So pretty soon you're going to see an amazing podcast studio. And I'm very excited to have it. We have the construction workers right now hammering away, so hopefully you don't see them in the background and you can pay attention to this episode, enjoy it, and hear from this episode. I think it's important to understand that what we're doing in season two. For all of our guest listeners, we are going to be specifically talking about transitions, like dentists who have transitioned their practice, who they sold to, what was their experience. And you know what? Today we have a very special guest, a team member who went through a transition. And we're going to get to hear all about that transition on this call. And for those of you who don't know Christine yet, I will tell you, first off, she's an amazing human. I've had the pleasure of working with her personally. We share a lot of the same views in regards to transitions in the clinical space. And she has been on Dentistry's Got Talent. And I believe is it two events that you have been at?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Which is awesome. You've been a panelist for women and DSOs, and you are really empowering dental hygienists and team members to work with the DSOs and have an open mind and talk about the transition. And also, you have a new business that I think is absolutely a niche that needed to be filled in our industry. And it's essentially you have a dental practice that's selling, and it is so hard to like break the news to your team, right? It's really difficult. It's like one of the hardest things ever. And you help with that. And then it's so hard to make that transition over to the new team, and you help with that. So like you're filling a huge void in our industry. I'm super appreciative for what you're doing, and I'm very excited to recommend you to all of our current clients that we work with dental pitch brokerage, and people that we do not work with, just in general to the industry. So thank you so much for being on the podcast, Christine.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk about this.
Yes, and the title of this podcast is Everything Changed Overnight, or Did It? So we always start off all of our podcasts by asking, if you were to sell your business. Now you have a business yourself, so you can relate to this, even though it's not a dental practice. If you were to sell your dental practice and you were to come into a room with a whole bunch of buyers that were interested in buying, and you got to present your business to them, and which is what we do, what would your walk-on song be? We're playing a loud song and you're feeling good. The energy is up. All the buyers are clapping. What is your walk-on song?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. There's so many good ones. But I think for me, it would either be Thunderstruck by AC/DC.
Yep, I heard it right now.
I know. I love that song. And then probably That's My Girl by Fifth Harmony.
All right, now I don't know Fifth Harmony, That's My Girl, but I do know Thunderstruck. I actually played it. Like as soon as you said that, the button play went in my brain. I love Thunderstruck, that song. I don't know the other one, but and for those of you who are like, why does Elijah do these walk-on songs? Well, for those of you who didn't know, I am a DJ. I am a DJ that goes all over the world at dental conferences for dental events, and it's been a blast. So we had to incorporate music. I love Thunderstruck. I think it's awesome. And that feeling that you get when you are about to sell is it gives you goosebumps. It gets you excited, and it's a fun time. And I know that personally because I've went through 7 exits myself. So Christine, can you tell us give the listeners a high level of your background? Tell us about your background so they know who they're speaking to.
Yeah, I have been a dental hygienist for like over 30 years, we'll just say. I've been in private practice. I've been in DSO. I have done some consulting. I have a podcast. So busy person. And then I just started DSO Team Transition. So, part of what happened when I became involved in a DSO was I was really disappointed that they had such a bad reputation in our industry. Because when we heard that, it was like, oh my gosh, he sold us to the devil, that kind of mentality. And the reason I came about my podcast is because I thought that it was very valuable to be a part of a DSO. And I wanted to really showcase that there was great things happening in that area.
Awesome. Can you tell us about your dental practice, where you worked, and why they decided to sell?
I was in a private fee-for-service practice in a western suburb outside Chicago. And he was my dentist, who I'd been with for many, 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 many years, was getting ready to retire. He was in his late 60s and he wanted to retire. We had had some associates, but nothing that really clicked with him. So he decided to look into some other avenues, unbeknownst to us, of course.
Okay, and who did he decide to sell to and why?
He went with DecisionOne Dental, and he really felt that their values were very similar to his. And I think he did a lot of research because we had such a group that had been with him for over 20 years that I think he really wanted us to be taken care of. So I think he was very thoughtful in the process.
And can you tell everybody how it was working with Decision One?
I found it to be a great experience. I thought they were very helpful. I think probably, and everybody kind of goes through this when you have a change of systems. You go from Practice Works to Denticon or Planet DDS or whatever. That kind of stuff is difficult no matter where you are, that. And they were really good with the training on the computer and all that kind of stuff. So that was super helpful because, that's always a big contention, and change is difficult no matter what it is. But I felt that they really listened to us. They really and they didn't really change that much. They gave us the autonomy to be our practice.
Okay, got it. And did you guys change your name? Did you keep the same name?
We kept the same name. We kept the same name.
And can you tell me a little bit about that group? Is it still like, around? How many practices do they have? Is it specialty? Is it GP? Give me a little bit more details.
Yeah, they're still around. There's, I think, 35 practices. They also affiliate with Smile Brands. So they're kind of a subsidiary, I think, of that. I'm not exactly sure how that all works, but I know Smile Brands is involved. And that's a great organization as well. So we're really blessed to have so much good business sense and good, empathetic, good people. I mean, Steve Built is a wonderful person. I think we all know that. So, it's been great to be affiliated with them.
That's awesome. And so, yes, and we can get more. I can invite Tammy Filipiak on here. Tammy's a good
Sure.
friend of mine, and I accidentally, well, I should say I went to Dykema, my first year at Dykema, and it was the most amazing experience ever, by the way. And I happened to sit down and talk to this random person at a table. I had no idea who he was. We spoke for at least an hour, maybe an hour and a half, just about life in general, and we connected immediately on things that were not dentistry, like my passion for kids and things in the nonprofit world, and he had similar passions, and we just went back and forth. And I got up from the table, and everybody's like, "What were you guys talking about?" And I was like, "This life, not dentistry, actually." And I had no idea who he was until people told me who he was. So I was like almost embarrassed, like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I should have known when I seen him the next time." And he was humble and really, really, this is super nice guy. So that's awesome to know that it was the Smile Brands organization.
Hmm.
That's awesome. And what were the benefits and what were the challenges, if any, that you had when you switched?
Um, I think the benefits were Well, we had access to insurance that we really didn't have previously. And when I say insurance, I mean medical, I mean pet insurance, I mean there was like a menu of different things that we could um, purchase or be involved in. There, of course, was a 401k that I took advantage of. So I think that is a big thing for me because when I first graduated and came out of school, I needed those things. And I was fortunate that my doctor provided that for me, but I didn't realize that that wasn't the norm. I thought everybody had medical and offered that at their dental office. And that's not what happens. And I just was I couldn't believe that. So I that's one big thing about DSOs that I think is a huge advantage is having those resources available to you because in a private practice, you do not have a lot of those resources a lot of the time.
Right. And not all states are like Hawaii. So like Hawaii, that's where I practice hygiene. Um, in Hawaii, you actually have to, no matter the size of the practice, you have to provide medical insurance if you work 20 hours or more. And it's mandated. So it's not the same in all states, but good to know about the awesome benefits. Is there any challenges that you had that you could prepare people for outside of the software when making a transition?
Well, you know what? A lot of it, Elijah, I think is mindset. If you are thinking it's going to be bad and it's going to be painful and it's going to be horrible, then it is. I think because of the person I am, and I tend to be extremely optimistic, and I know life is what I make it. And so I tend to be a lot more positive. And I think that you need somebody in your sphere that can kind of take that mantle up and champion that. But I would tell people don't panic. And this is for dentists as well, because I find that there is kind of a grief period your new staff has to go through. And I find that a lot of times what happens is the new dentist just dismisses that as they don't like me, they're bad employees, they've got bad attitudes. And I think a lot of times that's just part of the process people have to go through and you need to give them grace.
Hmm. Yeah, I can only imagine having to go through that as a team member or even an associate dentist that is brought on by the new group just going through that period. And also the change can be really hard for people. Like, and my thought is just embrace the change, right? Because you could either embrace it at that office or a different office, but change is coming no matter what. Then embrace it. I used to be a coach for about 10 years and in dental practices. I no longer do that, but when I was coaching practices, I was like really big on having dental hygienists specifically work on an associate model, meaning like they're paid on their production.
Hmm.
And there are some DSOs, not all, but some that do that. And I remember switching them over, and they actually had the ability to make way more. They were so happy when they did it, but the change that was coming would send many into tears because it was so uncomfortable. You get into this zone of doing the same thing, being paid the same way, being treated the same way. You don't know what's coming next, and the unknown can make some people almost, paralyzed. What can people do to like prepare for this big change? Like, what's a strategy you would use to prepare for change?
Well, I think that part of the strategy is that you have to realize change is inevitable. Your doctor is going to retire. It's going to happen. In this environment, people are going to sell practices. I think just being aware that this is coming, no matter if it's today or 10 years from now, it is coming. And I think that's part of it. And the fact that you don't think it's ever going to change, I mean, life is always changing. But I do think that growth begins outside your comfort zone. So in order to grow, you need to change.
Is there anything that you would have did differently during your transition?
I think I might have had a little bit more one-on-one with each staff member to kind of, get a sense of where they were, because it is such a big emotional thing to kind of go through, especially in, like, I'm sure you're aware, in most instances there's no prep. You just, all of a sudden, it's not until the ink is dry that the staff finds out. And I know there's different reasons that they do that, but for most people, that is like a gut punch. And so I think more one-on-one with each team member, just to see, how much of the air got out of their lungs when they got punched.
Right, right. And that is a good point. Once the ink is dry, that's when they find out. And I think you started by saying, like, it's inevitable. The office is going to sell eventually. It's like, this know that it's going to happen. And also be happy for the dentist who sold, because at the end of the day, there are so many dentists that I know that have been through their journey that didn't take a paycheck many times, and there was always food on the table, dealing with the stress of having a business, them not working a 9 to 5, them being up late, entering notes, and doing things that you don't have to do. And so I think having an appreciation that it's going to happen, and they worked their butt off to get to this point. They made a lot of risks to get to this point, and I think this, having some grace with them and understanding that a team leaving would absolutely blow up a deal. These deals, they take a minimum of 3 months, and they could take up to a year, right, to get a practice sold. Right, we like to say 3 to 6 months is ideal, but they could take up to a year. And if it got out that you were selling and there was people that were scared and they left, a dental practice without a team is not really it's not an easily sellable practice. And so it doesn't really make sense to go and say, I'm selling. I think it does make sense when somebody is onboarded and a new team member, or you're starting an office, to say, the goal is to grow the office to eventually sell. I want you guys to know that. I also want you to know that you're going to be put in very good hands when I find a new partner to sell to. And, oh, by the way, I'm not leaving. I will be staying at least 3 to 5 years or more and being a team member with you. So as long as we're all, going towards the same goal and knowing this, I want you to know this early and now, because that's this dentistry. So if I was a dentist, I was an employer, and I was sitting in the seat, that's how I would handle it. But it's hard, though, and I understand that it's hard. When somebody has been with you for 30 years, how do you break that to them? Because this hit them out of nowhere. They thought, like, you're going to retire together. The truth is that as a dentist, you really should not be waking up one morning or one year saying, I want to retire tomorrow, or I want to retire in 6 months. It really should be, in 3 to 5 years, I want to retire. Right?
Yeah. Well, a couple things that you said that were really important that I noticed is, once my dentist sold and he was no longer, doing all the stressful things that you were talking about, oh my gosh, he was so happy. I've never seen him so happy. He'd come in, he'd go home. He just always was, he was very different once that weight had been lifted off of him. So and I love to see him like that, honestly, because like you said, he deserved it. It was a long career. He was a great dentist. He was great to his employees. I mean, I couldn't say a bad thing about him. He was wonderful. So that really was a difference for me, though, to see him just be like coming to work, happy, doing his dentistry, going home. I think that was rewarding for me, for sure.
Right. What's what was the reaction that your team had when they found out about the sale, and what was the reaction of the patients? Can you describe that?
Yes, I can. But I do want to say one other thing to your listeners. Be careful about bashing DSOs, because if you sell to one, It really makes you look hypocritical. So I think that's one lesson, because when our doctor said he was selling, or I found out we were selling to a DSO, and he had said DSO bad for his entire career, that was very off-putting. So definitely think about that, how the way you talk about DSOs with your team going forward. So just in case you would sell to one. But I don't think the patients felt very different because, like you said, our doctor stayed on for a couple of years. So that was a good transition for our patients. And after he left, the entire staff stayed. So I think patients didn't see, a revolving door, which I think is dangerous when you buy a new practice. If all of a sudden patients are seeing new people, new people, new people, they start to lose some confidence in your practice. So I think those two elements really help to maintain good patient retention.
Got it. Makes sense. And that was a good comment you also made in regards to don't bash DSOs. And listen, DSOs is a really broad word. There's so many different types, and there's so many different sizes. And I think it's very important to understand that overall it's this group, it's group dentistry, and it's backed by financial money. And there's so much positives that are in it. I didn't know what I didn't know, so I never was one to ever bash DSOs or groups. And by the way, I see them for private practice dentists, selling to private practice dentists as much as DSOs. But the reality is that the DSOs are buying up most of the private practice dentists. And a lot of people are like, well, why are they doing that? It's pretty simple. If you grow a practice that's, let's just call it a $2 million practice or more, there's not a lot of associates or private practice dentists that can afford to buy you. It's a lot of money. I mean, you're talking a $2 million practice. Let's just say if they have a 30% margin, which 20% is good, is normal. But let's say if they have 30%, which is very realistic for a practice that's a $2 million practice, you're looking at a $600,000 EBITDA and most likely like a 5x multiple. So that's a $3 million exit. Most private practice dentists are not going to be able to finance that or get that amount of money to purchase that. So they almost don't have a choice but to sell. So you don't build something huge to not be able to sell it. You build it to be able to sell it, and you're selling it to maybe a startup, which means maybe a 1 to 10 practices, or emerging groups that we'll call it 10 to 30, mid-size. You can go everywhere with these numbers, but a mid-size DSO or a large DSO, or maybe even private equity. But the point is here's what happens: is the smaller groups buy up the private practices, or the singles. Then after the smaller groups buy them, the mid-sized groups buy the emerging groups, the large groups buy them, and that's the roll-up essentially. So eventually, we're following the medical trend. So we're at around 30%, and within the next 5 to 10 years, 85% of us will be. That's what it's going to be, is bought up. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. There's always going to be a place for private practice dentists. It's just harder. It's harder to compete with the pricing of all the materials, the marketing, the budgets of the big groups is, huge compared to a private practice dentist. The benefit plans as well. You talk about benefits to the employees. And so overall, it's just looking more attractive. And that's the reason why they're selling, and they're not selling out. So I think it's important to understand that.
Well, and I think during COVID, I have to say that I felt very protected. And I think because we had a bigger group, it was easier for us to get supplies, where some of the smaller mom and pop practices maybe couldn't get N95s and some of the supplies they needed. So, there's purchasing power there as well. So there's a lot of benefits, I think, for the employee.
Yes, absolutely. Did the sale allow you to pursue any new passions or career opportunities?
Yes, I was able to collaborate with the bigger group of hygienists within my own DSO, which I thought was fantastic. I was able to do some CE planning for our groups in regional areas, which was really fun. And then, like I said, I got my passion to do the podcast and now the new business. And so it's really, really been great for me.
That's awesome. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our guests that are listening?
I would love to share that I think the team transition is so important, and I don't want them to forget about their team. And that when it's a very emotional time when you're getting a new team. And I know it's hard as well to be the new owner because you hear, oh, well, we didn't do it this way. And we never did it this way. And our dad didn't do it this way. I mean, I know that those are all things that the new owners hear. And I just hope that they give grace and they hire me to help with their transition.
Absolutely. I think it makes sense. It also relieves the level of guilt, right? There is some guilt. Like, what about my team? And how's my team going to be taken care of? And how are they going to handle this? And how's the transition going to go? And so you basically come in and, I mean, there's a lot of money that is going into the sale, right? There's a lot of money. And, your fees are very minimal compared to the big picture. And it allows them to sleep at night for those who feel bad. And I think it's a perfect thing that you're adding. For people who are interested in getting in touch with you, what is the best way to reach you?
I have a website, DSO Team Transition.com. Also, you can reach me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Christine Diehl, Diehl. I also have a email, DSOhygienist@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being our guest on season 2. It was a pleasure to have you. And where can people find your podcast? What's your podcast called, and where can people find it?
You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube. It's called the DSO Hygienist.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next episode. Thanks, Christine. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.